So many of you know that back in February, when the New Hampshire primary was actually held, I was still a member of the Democratic Party, mostly because I wanted to lead the Democratic Party actually in October of 2019, towards the end of the month. And I went to my town hall and I wanted to deregister from the Democratic Party. And they were like, no, you can't do it. I said, why? And they said, you have to wait until after the New Hampshire primary. We're not going to allow you to change your party until after then, which is pretty fascist and stupid. But it was what it was. I was still a member of the Democratic Party by the time the February primary hit, and so I had to vote in New Hampshire in the Democratic primary, and I weighed all my options, and I ended up voting for Pete Buttigieg for a couple of reasons. One, if Tulsi had been more viable, I probably would have thrown my vote Tulsi's way, but Buttigieg was the most viable of the more, well, looking back now, I might not call him like a moderate or a centrist, but like, listen, at the beginning of his campaigning in New Hampshire, which was a good like year before the New Hampshire primary at least, he was actually normal at the beginning. And then he got super woke and he became what I called, by the time the New Hampshire primary rolled around, he became what I called Robot Pete, which was like the super woke robot that just basically said what he thought he needed to say in order to get votes. And it was kind of really depressing. But what was happening in New Hampshire, it was really going to come down to three people in New Hampshire. It was either going to be Bernie Sanders, Pete Buttigieg, or Amy Klobuchar snuck right in there at the very end. She had a great debate performance and her stock in New Hampshire really went up. Well, I hate Amy Klobuchar. I think she's a workplace bully. I never would have supported her and did not want her to be anywhere close to the top of the heap. Bernie Sanders, I was really nervous about because I thought that Bernie got very, very extreme in between 2016 and 2020. I definitely supported him in 2016. I actually even donated to his campaign when he first announced he was going to be running again, basically as soon as he announced. But then he got so extreme in his views, I was like, this is not okay. And at the time, I was really concerned that Bernie was going to like run the table with everything. And Pete Buttigieg was someone that in New Hampshire and also in Iowa too, he was giving Bernie a real run for his money. Pete Buttigieg's campaign put a lot of effort into the state. They did a lot of outreach. They had a lot of people here. And at all the events I saw him at, and I saw him in person several times, he was like a normal kind of centrist, moderate voice. And I was like, listen, he's the most boring guy in the history of boring, but I kind of sometimes want the president to be boring. He doesn't need to be like Trump level entertaining all the time. Like I don't always mind if he's boring. So anyway, long story short, I ended up throwing my vote to Pete Buttigieg, who later became crazy. And I was really annoyed with him actually for dropping out of the race when he did, because he was one of those people that obviously was a coordinated effort to all drop out at the same time to elevate Biden and anoint him as the leader of the Democratic Party for reasons past my understanding. But now it seems like it's coming back to bite him, because a Biden presidency, if it occurs, and you know what, listen, I'm still on the fence of like, we don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going either way, but there is a very, 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 very significant possibility that Biden will be inaugurated in January. And we all need to acknowledge that on some level if we want to have any foot in reality at all. And one of the things I find so ironic about this is they have no idea what to do with Pete Buttigieg, because the hallmark of the Biden presidency, well, I guess maybe there's going to be two things. One, it's going to be Obama part 2 with all these corporate lobbyists and all the Obama people coming back as though Obama didn't create Trump in the first place, but that's neither here nor there. It's going to be like Obama part 2. But the other thing is that it is probably going to be like the first intersectional presidency where people are getting appointed to roles purely because of their gender and their skin color and all of these things. And as we all know from the woke hierarchy, even though Pete Buttigieg is gay, that doesn't really matter because he is also a cisgendered white man. And so Pete Buttigieg was always going to be really much lower down in the woke hierarchy. I mean, the reason that Kamala Harris got selected as the VP, and we all know this, Biden flat out said he was going to pick a woman for this role. Like that was the number one criteria. It had to be a woman. And I think we all suspected it was going to be a black woman because these are the times that we live in. And that is why Kamala Harris is in that role, is it was an intersectional pick. as many of Biden's appointees are, and God knows Kamala Harris's staff, the people she's picking up for that, I think are like all black women. And, you know, there's nothing wrong necessarily with that as long as they're qualified. I don't always know that they are, but you know, that's a different topic for a different day. But what I find really funny about this whole thing is that they don't know what to do with Pete Buttigieg now. Pete Buttigieg was like one of the major candidates to drop out and endorse Biden from the very beginning. And the reason I believe he did this is because he knew that he was setting himself up for some senior role if Biden were to win that would set him up for a future presidential run. Pete Buttigieg is many, many things, but one of those things is he's an absolute pragmatist. He will say what he needs to say and do what he needs to do to get where he wants to go. And if you think he's not running for president again, you're out of your mind. He is absolutely going to run for president again. And he saw this as a way to set himself up, maybe get him more experience to be able to run again and maybe even be successful next time. But I do think it's really funny that the Biden administration really doesn't know what to do with him. Let's read this article from Axios. President-elect Joe Biden is considering a high-profile ambassadorship for Pete Buttigieg, possibly sending him to China. People familiar with the matter tell Axios. Now, that's not the funny part, though. The funny part is when we get down to this bullet point right here. Finding a cabinet position for him has been a challenge as the former VP focuses on nominating women and people of color to high-level posts. They don't know what to do with him because they're nominating women and people of color. Listen, one of the things this article talks about, and you see it right here, behind the scenes, Biden passed over Buttigieg, an Afghan war vet, to be his ambassador to the United Nations. Who did Biden select instead for ambassador to the United Nations? She selected Linda Thomas Greenfield, who you can see is obviously a black woman. I'm sure she's a very smart, very competent woman, but she's a black woman. Joe Biden's pick to be the next U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, a low-key veteran foreign affairs officer, reflects the president's intent to return to a more traditional role at the world body, as well as an olive branch to the beleaguered diplomatic corps. So that's who Pete Buttigieg got passed over for. I think that this is... They don't know what to do with a cisgendered white man. They're going to give him this China role. Maybe they give him someone else. Who really knows? But we'll see what happens. I mean, I think in this case, listen, Pete Buttigieg, we're going to see him again, and I think you should be prepared for that. I think the question I have about Buttigieg in the future is, I do wonder, you know, Helen Pluckrose, who's the co-author of Cynical Theories along with James Lindsay, she made a plea with people right before the election to vote for Biden because she did not think that Trump was the best person to fight back against the woke critical theory nonsense. She thought that it would be more effective to fight back with someone like Biden, and that way the left would have to kind of like fight off the crazies in their ranks. Now, I disagree with her on this. I absolutely do not think that's going to happen, and I think Pete Buttigieg is actually one of the pieces of evidence that I give for that because he started, I swear to you guys, he started off as normal. Again, in New Hampshire, we see candidates about a year ahead of when they start actually making their way into like the public space, right? Because they come here early, they get to know people. Like it is very much retail politics in New Hampshire. Like if you don't meet a candidate like a good 2-3 times, you're probably not going to vote for them in the New Hampshire primary, and that's just the way it is. And we're very spoiled and blessed in that regards. But Pete Buttigieg used to be normal, and then as he got more and more popular and more well known, he became like he turned into a woke robot. And this is the danger that I see in this, is that in order to really appeal to the left in a way that you're going to get primary votes, you have to speak to the most crazy among the base. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Pete Buttigieg specifically evolves over the next 4 years. Because, again, regardless of whether this turns out to actually happen or not, we are absolutely going to see Pete Buttigieg again in future presidential elections. Is he going to go down the route of trying to appeal to all the woke nonsense, or is he going to take a more sensible, moderate path? I mean, I'm going to be honest, guys. Like, I think that there is an opportunity that the Democratic Party is not really considering of returning to more moderate, sensible roots outside of this woke nonsense. I don't think they're going to go that route. I think they're going to get sucked into it, but I think that they absolutely could if they wanted to. And I think that they would be, I would be much more interested in seeing a party that is actually returning to some level of sanity, that beats back the crazy left-wing progressives, that beats back this everyone's a racist that doesn't agree with us, everyone's a misogynist that doesn't agree with us. If they can figure out that problem, then I think that the party is going to be much more viable going forward. And I think Pete Buttigieg is someone that we might look at as kind of like, well, I'll call him a bellwether of whether or not the Democratic Party is going to sink into woke insanity or not. And he used to be normal. He became woke in the election. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch how he plays this and how he reaches out to the public over the next 4 years. And it might give us some indication of where the party's going, because listen, Joe Biden is not the future of the party. Let's be honest. Joe Biden is not the future of the party. Joe Biden's like 800 years old and has dementia. Pete Buttigieg is like 39. Pete Buttigieg is my age. He's 39 years old, or he will be 39 years old if he gets appointed to this post. Like, he is the future of the party. He is going to be a leader in this party for years to come. And so I want to pay close attention to him and watch which way he goes, because I think his sensibilities are very moderate and centrist. And if he gets sucked down the woke nonsense like crazy train, then that is going to really indicate to me that the Democratic Party is lost in that respect. So we'll see what happens. I just think it's an interesting thing to pay attention to. Yes, we have to pay attention to things that are not the things that we politically like. I can already envision that I'm going to get like 9,000 thumbs down to this video because, Carlin, how dare you talk about the Democrats or the possibility that Joe Biden might get inaugurated. You guys have got to chill out. Honestly, you've got to chill out. This is a real possibility. And, the left has lived in fantasy land and derangement for the last 4 years. I ain't getting sucked into derangement on the right, folks. I'm not doing it. I'm going to have a foot in reality. And I think these are important things to talk about. And it's just the way it is. So if you don't mind me talking about these things, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel if you aren't already. I do daily content around news, politics, culture, really whatever I find interesting. You can subscribe by clicking a little red button down there somewhere. If you think you're subscribed, just double check for me. And listen, if you can't handle the fact that I'm doing a video that's not related to Trump's ultimate inevitable victory, you gotta relax. You might want to hit go unsubscribe if you don't want to see this type of content, because I can't live in this crazy train of Trump anymore for the moment. I love Trump. I want him to serve a second term, whether that's now or in 2024. I don't really know, but in the meantime, I'm gonna focus on other issues. That's just gonna be the way it is. And if you don't like it, don't let the door hit you on the way out, man. That's all I've got for this video. I'll see you soon.